In today's video, we're taking a look at the best coal ships, specifically at tier 9 and 10. There's a lot of ships available for coal in the game, but I think the most worthwhile ones to get are going to be the higher tier ones. They take a lot longer to grind for, and that's why I'm going to give my opinions on them today. I haven't caught up on the one take series on premium ships at all yet, so keep that in mind. There's not really going to be a lot of these live matches like I've been telling you about for the tech tree tier 10s to go check out, but there will be some more hand-picked games on the channel if you're looking for more specifics on some of these ships. To start with, we have some ships I just haven't really played. So Z44, Immelman, Carnot, Neustrashimi, and Tulsa. These are all ships that I haven't played. I haven't decided to buy them with my coal yet, and there's a few reasons for that. Z44, I mean, the stats show that it's basically a tier 7 DD at tier 9. It's not actually, but you get the idea when you look at these stats. It's a really, really underpowered DD in my opinion. Really not that interesting to me. Immelman, not really a carrier player, so not going to spend my coal there necessarily, although I think it's a reasonably strong ship. You're going to have to ask some other people about it, though. Carnot seems like a more AP-focused battlecruiser-esque ship. Seems like maybe it was a ship in design to test out what the Marceau line would look like, for example. But again, it's a ship that I'm just haven't really been interested in. So again, you'll have to look somewhere else for that one. Neustrashimi, again, not terribly interested in a tier 9 DD with 2 turrets, 4 guns. It's just not got a lot of DPM. It's big, clumsy. It has a super heal. That's the gimmick here that the Neustrashimi has. So you take multiple engagements with other DDs that don't even have heals or even have just normal heals. You will eventually be able to outtrade most of them, but I'm just really not interested in it. It also has kind of wonky dispersion if the videos that I've seen are to be believed. It's kind of a weird one. Tulsa, I haven't had this one simply because 6 guns, not a huge fan of, although with the fast reload, you're at tier 9, so you have Des Moines level reload at tier 9 suddenly, but you lose out on 1 gun per turret. So that's kind of the difference there with Tulsa. I think it has some pretty solid concealment and radar, but only 6 guns instead of 9 compared to Des Moines, for example. Little wonky dispersion, tougher to deal with that way. So those ones I haven't really played as much, so keep in mind that I'm not really comfortable ranking those ones. That's why they're down there. Next, to start our ships that I've actually played, Kaba. I think Kaba is a solid coal ship to get. Although I don't know if it should be your first one. There's a lot of really good coal DDs. And Kaba is an old ship. It's been in the game for a very long time. And if you don't have the legendary or unique upgrade, which actually gives Kaba its reasonably competitive range, it's a difficult ship to play. I noticed a massive difference going from the 13.5 kilometer max range Kaba to Ledge Mod Kaba or unique upgrade Kaba, where you get 14.5, nearly 15 kilometers of range. Much, much easier to play and much more fun. But that's a lot to invest in a single ship. Then I think there's some better DDs just overall in this coal section. So we'll look at those in a little bit. To start off C tier, we've got the Marco Polo. I don't like this ship at all, really. Italian battleships, man, they're just not in a good spot right now. I don't really think this one's worth getting. And I think a lot of the battleships in here just aren't really worthwhile a lot of the time. They're just pretty underpowered, more close range focused in a meta that wants to see things at longer ranges. Moskva will be our first A-tier ship, much like Kaba, been in the game a long time. However, Moskva doesn't need its legendary mod to be really competitive to start with, and having a long-range, long-duration radar combined with pretty accurate, extremely high shell velocity guns is really, really nice. There's a lot of battle impact to be had in Moskva dealing with caps. It's reasonably tanky. Although, like Stalingrad in yesterday's video talking about the steel ships, very vulnerable broadside, no more fire prevention, so you're going to die to fires a lot more often in the Moskva than you used to, so you got to be a little bit more careful. It's a really strong HE farmer as well, surprisingly. Some of my fastest witherers and arsonists that I've ever had in this game have actually been Moskva, just because the range is so good and the accuracy, that with its really strong fire chance as well, it can burn down battleships very, very quickly. And even though the AP is not as good as Petro or Stalingrad, it's still got some pretty strong armor-piercing shells. Next up, we got the Tromp. This is a ship that I really had a hilariously fun time when I first played it. You guys probably saw that video not too long ago. But airstrikes without the parachutes means they actually drop a lot quicker, meaning it's a lot easier to hit. It's a very small reticle though, but they do some pretty insane damage. Although as people understand what the Tromp is about, it's going to be a lot harder to land those airstrikes. So the gun power is pretty solid as well. 150 millimeter guns this time instead of the smaller caliber stuff on other DDs. Tromp is a bit slow and clumsy, but the good shell velocity on the guns means you can farm at really long ranges. And you actually have okay torpedoes as well. It's kind of a decent ship on 3 different offensive fronts, the airstrikes, the guns, and the torps. But I think it's a B tier for now. I'm really not sure where to put this one yet. Probably would have been A tier if things continued like that first video. But I've had a few weird games where I haven't felt like I've been able to do much in the Tromp. So a little too early to tell where exactly it sits, and very, very gimmicky. So B tier I think is fine. Up next, we got the Pommern, and this is going to be a very, very similar ship to the GK. So I may as well put them both up now. They're basically the tier 9 and tier 10 of the same thing. Even though Pommern does have torpedoes where the Kearsarge doesn't, they have the same strengths and weaknesses. In a close range brawl, they're very scary. Lots of secondaries that are reasonably accurate, bit of a halfway point between standard secondaries, and things like Ohio and Schlieffen that have the most accurate secondaries in the game. So they're okay. The GK1 specifically, pen 32 millimeters already. Pommern, the 105s are 26, I believe. But really strong secondaries, lots of HP, really good hull armor. You get a hydro. The problem is the superstructure. It's so easy to farm a superstructure on both of these ships that it doesn't really matter that you have really good armor on your hull. So it's really difficult also in this longer range, more passive meta to really get close without losing most of your HP to your superstructure. Also, the turret angles are atrocious on these two ships, so you got to show a lot of broadside to actually fire all your guns, which then, even though you have good armor and turtleback, you're still going to take a huge hit from full pens if you're caught firing all your guns. I find these ships to be getting weaker as time goes on. When Pommern first released, especially when Kearsarge first released, really, really strong, extremely fun ships. They're kind of just situationally fun now, and I don't know. I don't really recommend either of these all that much, especially Kearsarge, since you can just get the Preußen, even though you don't get 12 guns. You overmatch a little more, the guns reload a little quicker, a little better turret angles, and that's a tech tree ship. So yeah, don't really recommend Kearsarge or Pommern, although they can be fun. Next in A tier, we have the Napoli. The only reason I don't actually have Napoli in S tier is that I think it can kind of be lacking battle impact sometimes. Napoli is another ship that wants to play at closer ranges, but actually can thanks to, well, its tiny superstructure, really good hull armor, a fuel smoke, which covers you while you're going full speed, very strong things like that. The secondaries are quite accurate and do pretty good damage at closer ranges. It's a really, really strong ship. I have a lot of fun playing Napoli, but again, it's not great at longer ranges, and there's a lot of long-range campy games. So I think Napoli's a great option to go for, but there's a few weaknesses and caveats when it comes to the matchmaker you get. It can be a little tricky to get in there and have those huge, fun, close-range brawly games. The Alvaro is a ship I don't really recommend, although it is much, much better than the ship it's kind of based off of, the Italian Regolo, tier 10. At least here you actually have some gun range. This is a ship that has a burst fire gimmick built into it, so you can hold your own in very bursty, short duration engagements, but the overall reload is pretty long. It's a bit of a different ship to play. I don't know. I didn't really find it all that special, and because there's so many good DDs in the coal area, I don't think this is a DD you should be going for. What you should be going for, though, is the Sherman. There's another one that you probably want to get as well for DDs, but the reason you get Sherman is the SAP DPM. This ship is absolutely ridiculous. You only have 3 guns, but they reload so fast. And the shell velocity is really, really good. So it's quite easy to hit targets at longer ranges. The SAP provides a ridiculous amount of alpha damage. It has some pretty strong HE as well. You're able to light a lot of fires very quickly in this ship. Even though the torpedoes are really wonky and not really all that useful, I think Sherman is just so strong thanks to those amazing guns. You get American smokes too, which is quite handy, and even a hydro. It's a great DD, although it's very, very slow. So if you're someone who struggles with positioning in your destroyer, meaning you don't really know where to play your DD until the last possible moment, Sherman won't be the best for that because it's slow to reposition. If you're someone who's good with that whole positioning idea and thinking ahead, and you don't want to aim extremely floaty shells, Sherman is an awesome destroyer. Up next, we got the Malta, a carrier that I have played a little bit. It's just ridiculous how good this thing is. So if you're a carrier player, you've probably already got it, or are you thinking about getting it? But yeah, it's just a really, really, really strong carrier. And yeah, I don't know really much else to say about it. I was thinking about putting this one in the haven't really played yet tier, but Malta's just so ridiculous. There's a lot of consensus on that. So I may as well just put it up as if you're a carrier player, you're probably already going for that one. Up next, Yoshino in B tier. This is a ship I don't really enjoy playing, although I think it's reasonably strong. The 305mm guns have one of the fastest reloads for that caliber of gun in the game, and they hit really, really hard. The HE is especially strong. The armor piercing is not quite as good as other 305 armor piercing, but you find a broadside cruiser, it's more than good enough to blap that. You get long range torpedoes, and even though the armor is not amazing, it's a bit of a big, easy target to hit. At least with the Yoshino compared to the Azuma, you have 30mm of armor instead of just 27. So you're able to bounce some 406s, which is quite nice. But I'm not a huge fan of playing the Yoshino. It's a ship that wants to play at the back of the map and snipe with its long range HE and long range torpedoes. It's not really a playstyle I'm all that fond of. I have Iwami down in C tier. That might be a little bit surprising, but I think the problem with Iwami is it's contradicting itself. It wants to be a secondary close-range brawler battleship, but its armor is really bad. It's worse than things like Pommern, where at least, you know, your hull armor is decent, right? This ship has a pretty large superstructure that's pretty easy to get pens on as well, although not as bad as the German battleships. The problem here is the hull armor is also quite weak. So if you misangle even a little bit, you're taking massive damage. HE, higher caliber, AP, it's going to rip through you like butter. The good things, though, are the turret angles. So you're actually able to angle very well forwards and backwards and fire all your guns. It's really quite strong in that case. The secondaries, I believe, have improved accuracy, I think. It's been a long time since I've played Iwami. I found it just to be a weaker version of the other tier 9 secondary battleships. Unfortunately, Georgia not being available anymore to purchase. That is the best version of all of these secondary tier 9 battleships. But who knows? Maybe with the Illinois coming in, apparently that thing has some improved secondary accuracy as well. Combining with some of those Buffalo level main guns could be an interesting thing. So I wouldn't go for Iwami at all right now. I really don't think it's that good. It's quite difficult to play. Up next, we're looking at the Salem. This is a Des Moines with a super heal, which is amazing. I find the Salem a lot of fun to play. I go more of a gun focus on the Salem than I even do in the Des Moines. Trying things like a lighthouse build where you actually increase your concealment as much as possible to take advantage of some of the upgrades that give you better reload when someone's within your detection range. It's a very risky but highly rewarding playstyle. Salem is a lot of fun. Although the heal is amazing, it doesn't heal you as much as a Minotaur's super heal, for example. If you're taking permanent damage to your Citadel, it's not going to heal very much of that back. Torpedo damage, not going to heal very much of that back. So a little bit of a caution here that it's not just a Des Moines with a Minotaur heal. It's a little different than that. Also keep in mind that it is a ship with a shorter range radar. So only 8.5 kilometers, I believe, on the radar. Not quite as useful as the 10 kilometers on the Des Moines, and you have to choose between radar and hydro, so you can't take both at the same time either. Salem's a lot of fun though, but there are a few downsides that don't quite put it in S tier for me. Another problem with it is that, well, you can just get the Des Moines, and it's basically the Salem, and a little better in some ways, a little worse in other ways, and you get it for free through just grinding. I guess coal is also technically free through grinding, but it's not a very unique experience. Much like the Shikishima and the Yamato, talking about those the other day, it's just a bit of a side grade, a little bit different. So if you're looking for a more unique ship to play, probably don't get Salem, but I think it's a lot of fun as that kind of off branch of a Des Moines. Up next, it is the Kearsarge. This is a very, very, very powerful ship that I don't enjoy playing all that much. So I'm just going to put it in B tier. It excels at mid to longer ranges thanks to its extremely large superstructure. It's very, very easy to do damage to. So you don't really want to play too close where people can reliably hit that. The Kearsarge is, of course, a hybrid battleship as well. So at longer ranges, you can always just pop your airplanes and go spot something for yourself to shoot at. It's a earlier concept of these hybrid American battleships that are coming early 2023. I'm not a huge fan of playing Kearsarge though, because even though I think it's extremely powerful, having a battleship able to spot for itself, it's one of the main weaknesses of the battleship class. You can just go spot for yourself, and it's really, really very powerful because of that. I just don't particularly enjoy a battleship that really, really struggles at close range. I'm often playing this ship too aggressively, losing too much HP, and then not able to have that much battle impact. 12 406 millimeter guns is very, very strong. These, of course, are more like the North Carolina guns, not the Montana guns. So you have very floaty shell velocity that's a little bit harder to hit at range. But Kearsarge is very strong. I would not blame you for getting this ship at all. I just don't find it all that fun to play personally. For our final ship in A tier, we have the Black. This is a ranked reward ship originally, and a very, very strong one. This is a ship that's basically a Fletcher with a radar added onto it. So a very, very, very strong cap contester. 7.5 kilometer radar. You get American smoke still. Fletcher guns are always nice at tier 9. The torpedoes being worse than Fletcher is a downside, although they are situationally useful to just be a kind of a sea mines wall off an area of the map so that you know generally that people aren't going to that spot. They reload quite quickly. The problem is that they just move so slowly through the water. They do hit for a lot of damage though, so if you are able to get hits, it's pretty fun. But the reason you're playing the Black is for that radar combined with the smoke and the strong DPM. It's a very, very, very good cap contester, which is perfect for ranked, and that's why it was a ranked reward. Now you can actually get it for coal, so I think it's worthwhile at tier 9 in random battles, but especially if you're playing ranked. And for our last ship, the Marceau. Yes, S tier coal ships are both destroyers. Marceau, like the Sherman, is a very, very strong tier 10 DD. And the reason I want to talk a little bit about the speed of the Sherman and positioning is that, well, Marceau is kind of the opposite of the Sherman. It's extremely fast positioning-wise, where the Sherman isn't really. But it has super slow shell velocity, so it's very hard to lead these shells at longer range, where Sherman is really strong and has very fast shell velocity. So they're almost opposites, although they're both very, very strong gunboat DDs. But how they go about it is a little bit different. So that's why I say, if you're someone who is pretty good at knowing where to position your DDs and you don't want to have to lead very floaty shells, that's where Sherman excels. But Marceau is awesome for someone who doesn't always know where to put their destroyer to get the best value out of that gunboat DD. Marceau repositions so quickly that you don't really have to worry about that too much. But what you do have to worry about is leading your shells at longer ranges. That said, if you do get used to the shell velocity on Marceau, the DPM is ridiculous on Marceau. It's one of the most dangerous DDs to run into these days. Sherman is too, of course, but Marceau being so fast makes it very hard to hit for the enemy DD shooting back at you, where Sherman is a pretty big, easy target to hit. So both very, very strong tier 10 DDs, and you're going to get both of them for different reasons. That said, I would say you probably want both of these. I like having both of them in port and being able to take them out depending on how I want to play. So that's going to be it for the best coal ships at tier 9 and tier 10. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What ships do you recommend for coal? Are you going to be going for any of these in the new year? I really do think Sherman and Marceau are the best options here, but anything out of A tier as well is going to be really, really solid. If you're wondering about the best way to get coal, it's just basically to play the game every day. Collect your daily crates and specifically pick resources containers. It'll take you a couple months, I think, and you'll be able to play either one of the Sherman or the Marceau. So it doesn't take that long, although you do have to play quite a lot each day to get all 3 containers. Coal is one of those resources you don't really get in big chunks all the time. It's just a constant thing that's grinding up in the background. So take your time with it, try and go for some of those tech tree ships, and eventually you'll find that you just have enough coal for one of these amazing tier 10s or tier 9 ships. That's just a bonus that if you get the tier 9 versions, I will say they do actually make more credits. Tier 9 premiums actually have a credit multiplier, where the tier 10 premiums don't. So keep that in mind if you're looking for a credit earner. Maybe look towards tier 9 a little bit more. But the tier 10s are also very fun, and they're also strong that on a good game, you're easily able to make a lot of credits as well. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys all are having a great holiday season. Let me know if you want to see some other thoughts on different areas of the game. Maybe we can talk about maps. I guess we haven't talked about research bureau ships. There's a few other options that we could take a look at. Put your thoughts in the comments down below. But for now, that's going to do it for the best coal ships. Thank you again for watching this video, and I hope you have a great Christmas.